emphasize on need for systemic change. Of course, incremental solutions are needed, but again, for more transformative change, what we need is more systemic change. And this systemic change is absolutely essential. One of the key messages coming out from one of our urban assessment in the global energy assessment has been that largest energy and CO2 reduction potentials come from systemic change, but it requires overcoming the policy fragmentation and dispersed, uncoordinated decision making. This means we have to fix our governance system, and we have to fix the way we do things in order to go for a systemic approach. And I don't need to emphasize too much on lifestyle change, which is absolutely essential. And we have actually pretty good lessons we have learned in last couple of decades for what we need to do for transformative change. For example, we have very innovative cap and trade system for CO2 emissions in city of Tokyo. We have wonderful public transport in city of Curitiba in Brazil. There are many urban regeneration projects in many cities. There are innovative road pricing system in Singapore and also in London. There are ambitious climate action plans in many cities in the developing world. We have a lot of demonstration programs like city like Masdar aiming for a zero carbon city. These are all source of optimism. There are no single solutions. One solution doesn't fit all. We need different approaches, but what we need is to bring all these dimensions together. However, I already said we need better governance. We need more scientific knowledge on how to operate city, how to understand many dimensions of it. We need to develop a better resource base for cities. We have to build a capacity and support mechanism for city. With this, I'd like to leave you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Parker. Just continuing that theme of sustainable change and the opportunities there, a question from Mike Child sent in on Twitter who's saying if national governments are unable to agree radical changes, can we look to the mayors of megacities and other cities to show that leadership?
That's a very, very, very important question, Nisha, because I think the mayors are now taking increasingly more leadership than in the past, be it at the issue of the climate change or be it at other aspects. They are becoming increasingly more and more active, and which is very good. But also we have to understand that, especially in the context of cities in developing country, still the role of local governments is still limited. So we have to have some set of multi-level kind of governance, police-centric kind of governance to really make city work. But of course, local governments are very good leaders. They are taking leadership, and momentum is there, which is excellent to see.
Mr. Parker, thank you very much. Well, furthering governance and leadership at several levels is exactly what the next panel discussion is about. And it's going to be ably led by Oliver Morton. Oliver, up you come. Briefings editor of The Economist, who's got a great panel lined up. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Misha. Thanks very much, everyone. Yes, as Misha said, we have a smart, experienced and diverse panel coming up who should come up sort of now, because otherwise I'm just a guy standing on stage telling you about a panel that isn't here. And here we have a panel. Carlos dos Santos, who's the High Commissioner of Mozambique to United Kingdom, Maria Ivanova, Julia Martin-Lefebvre, Anne Glover, and Patricia Pino. So if you'd welcome them all, we'll get down to business. I understand the arrangement here is that when you want to ask something, you tweet it or text it, and I think instructions about how to do that will be up on the screens. When you panelists want to talk, you sort of like look really eager, and I notice that you're very eager and want to say something. And occasionally I will, of course, ask questions myself. We're talking, in case you've come in from somewhere else, about delivering governance for global sustainability at all scales. And it struck me coming into the meeting this morning that we've been on a fairly local scale here, though it is a vast cacophonous hall of a local scale. It is rather a local and inward looking, and from this local scale we've been taking a very global outlook. Outside in the national scale in Britain, those of you who are British or who have turned on that television channel will have noticed that we in Britain have been having this week a heartfelt debate about temperature and taxation, which is good, except for the fact that it's unfortunately not about global temperature and carbon taxation. It's about the temperature of takeaway food and the taxation of Cornish pasties. I think it's fair to say that in many of these issues we face various problems of perspective and of size. But though it's easy to make fun and gratifying to make fun of the problem of Cornish pasties and taxation of takeaway food, that issue does actually reflect in microcosm many of the issues that I think we need to address here today. Issues of resources, of moving resources around, of privilege and what counts as privilege, and of values that sit behind our decisions on these matters. And to begin with, I thought I'd turn to Maria Ivanova and ask, what should we define as governance in this world of privileges, scarce resources, and differing values?
Thank you, Oliver. It's a pleasure to be here. And isn't it funny that we get this question at the very last session of a conference on governance? So I can tell, and it's just an indicator that we all define governance in our own way. And it means something to all of us. As a professor, I have to have a definition of governance. And I'll just share with you what I use in my classroom, what I use with my students. And I define governance in what I do as simply as the design and execution of policy. And that doesn't mean that governance is designed or executed by government. Not at all. All of the design and execution of policy, whether it's about environment, whether it's about trade, whether it is about food, happens at multiple levels by multiple actors. But we have to have a common goal. So it is a very simple, and I hope not a simplistic definition from me, the design and execution of policy, and you can fill in the blank, whether it's global governance, global environmental governance, and so forth.
Well, I wonder then if we could turn to Carlos for a brief account of how the design and execution of policy looks on the regional level in Africa at the moment.
Well, first of all, let me thank the organizers of this conference for bringing so many people, so much knowledge to this gathering and to inform policy decisions that will take place later in Rio. In Africa, we know that for the governments and the organizations of Africa to succeed in fighting poverty, in democratic governance, they have to have good governance that will enable implementation of policy, and because of that consciousness, they try to establish structures at continental level, the African Union with its NEPAC program, and then the regional organizations like SADC in Southern Africa, ECOWAS in West Africa, and the others that form the building blocks of bringing those governance structures to bear at the continental level. But there has to be a link also to the national governance structures. And here again, there's a lot of work to make sure that Africans use each other's experiences to build on governance. And the African peer review mechanism is the innovative way that they found to look at each other's capacities, experiences, to bring governance to a more standardized way of doing things in Africa. And I think this will help countries. It was misunderstood when it was approved, because it was thought that countries of Africa were going to police each other. But that was not the idea. The idea is actually to teach each other, to learn from each other's experience. And we hope that the global world can help Africa to do that, and also establish the link with the global governance architecture.
And Julia, I think that you have an experience at IUCN of working with various different governance structures, entities who are normally not governed in the same sort of structure, NGOs and governments. Is that something that makes you hopeful for thinking that those sorts of gaps can be bridged?
Yes. First of all, I like the word architecture. My organization, IUCN, was invented and the architecture was designed in 1948, a long time ago, 64 years ago. And one of our founding fathers, I'm glad to see this gender balance panel, but I think we had not balanced well. It's a different balance. So one of our founders designed this architecture which had governments and NGOs in one organization, talking to each other, exchanging information, and actually setting the governance framework for the conservation of nature. It was really a brave and unusual decision. I think the governance architecture that the world needs to bring those voices in one room to discuss together in a really democratic parliament. What's missing in our architecture is business. They're not inside, but we work a lot with business. I think that is the biggest challenge. How do we bring those voices inside the room? And that's what IUCN's architecture was designed at, and it works. It's complicated, but the issues are complicated.
Well then, as we heard on a previous panel, how do we actually take business as the representatives of a growing economy into that governance structure? Do you have any, I mean, we obviously haven't managed it yet.
No, but I think there are an awful lot more bridges built toward individual businesses which want to enter into this discussion, which feel the pressure that the planet is under, and also with organizations of businesses. The World Business Council on Sustainable Development, established 20 years ago at the last Rio conference, is a very good example. The Global Compact. We at IUCN have links, very close links with all of them.
Okay.
That's just the first step, though.
You said we at IUCN, and I realised in my last question I'd actually broken what I wanted to set up as a ground rule for this discussion, which is that I would like to avoid using the term we unless people define who they mean by we.
Okay.
Because I think that one of the most basic facts about politics is it depends on who you get people to believe that they are a we with. And that actually leads to a question that we have from the webcast from Chris Bradford, which I thought I might throw to Patricia, because this is a question about not just the scale in terms of type of organisation, or the scale in terms of regional versus global, but a question about scale in temporal terms. And what Chris is asking is, what is the panel's view of the proposal for an ombudsperson for future generations, which is currently included in the Zero draft for Rio +20. And this is like, I think, something that Andy Revkin was writing about recently, Carolyn Reffensberger's idea of a legal guardian for future generations. How do we bring time into governance?
So it's curious that I was thinking over the past of this conference that two of the most important scholars that have influenced my academic life were here, and they, Eleonore Ostrom and Berta Becker from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and they both women who have been working into the interdisciplinary arena, and throughout the time has been, made a great influence on the, in showing and demonstrate the importance of scale and dealing with common pool, natural resource, and stressing the importance of, the proper rights and local actors or local domain as an arena where change really happens. And then I think, but that's, and then keeping also as we as scholars looking at the global scale interconnected. And I think in terms of time scale, we have seen from my Brazilian experience in the policy arena there, throughout the years, how the international domain has greatly influenced the evolution of the social environmental agenda in Brazil. And for instance, Rio 92 UN Millennium Assessment, and now we have lots of hopes for the Rio +20. So that takes time, and but we are really seeing the progress of how this agenda are constructed, but the problem is that we always see that without a profound change on our thinking in the economic development, it is strategies and initiatives are always outweighed. So really needed to bring these two agendas together. I think both economic development with the social environment agenda across levels in all governments, and I think that's my hope for this future. And
Maria, you were looking like you wanted to come in on the temporal question.
I actually want to comment on the question